We sit on the other end of construction, and then we lament how bad design documents are. Why are we rushing into things? Very seldom do we have that other side shedding light on why decisions are made.
We do our best to predict what the market might look like in 6 months and a year, but you really can't. So the longer you wait, the more money you're going to spend. There's no more money beyond that. So if escalation takes over, they could find themselves in a situation having to choose which schools or what scope they can't move forward with.
Let's start off with the easy stuff. Just tell us who you are, what you do, and kind of give us just a layout of the kind of stuff that you work on.
I am the program director for our team, a program management team. I work for AECOM. AECOM's massive, international, so there's different business lines. We are in the business line of program and project management or program management. So if there's a client that has a very large capital improvement program, in our case, our client has a bond that the city of Austin passed. A lot of clients, when they have such a large influx of money, they don't have the staff to, manage that within usually a pretty short amount of time, like a few years. So they look to hiring consultants to help them manage the life cycle of their bond program. So from planning to design to construction to closeout, turnover. Our team is a large group, over 30 people of full-time folks. That doesn't include sub-consultants that we hire on an as-needed basis. And we live with our client for the duration and the life of the bond.
When you say live with your client, like actually office with them?
Correct.
Yeah. So you guys are like a right arm to them throughout this process. And how, you said an amount of money, about how much money was out there to be managed on this one?
Sure. So this is the second bond that our team has been partnering with our client on. This current bond is $2.44 billion. It was passed in November of 2022. So we refer to it as the 2022 bond. And we manage over $1 billion of that $2.4 billion for them.
Which is a wild amount of money. And then where is that specifically going to? Yeah.
So our client is the Austin Independent School District. So Austin, the Austin ISD has over 130 facilities that they own and operate across the city of Austin. That includes elementary, middle school, high school, so it's K through 12 district, and also their supporting facilities. So for all of their operations, athletics, transportation, food service, etc. And a majority of their facilities were built over 50 years ago. So they need some help. So Austin ISD started asking citizens for these larger bonds than they traditionally went out to ask for. Historically, their bonds were smaller amounts to get money for maintenance and deficiencies. And then maybe here and there, maybe their 2013 bond, for example, had a couple of projects that were brand new schools. It wasn't until their 2017 bond that passed in November of 2017 that they asked citizens for over $1 billion. And at that point in time, it was the largest bond passed in Central Texas history. That's where our team came in, and that was the first bond that we helped manage. So of that bond, we helped manage over $750 million, around 18 projects. And then in this bond, that one was super successful. They went to ask the citizens again for double that amount and hitting their, yet another historical milestone of passing the largest bond in Central Texas history with the $2.4 billion. And the majority of our projects, this time we have around 25, and in both cases, majority of those projects are Either majority are tear down, rebuild, like brand new. We need a brand new elementary school. There's a lot of planning that goes into prior to asking citizens to pass a bond. In the 2017 bond, our team helped with that. That's a facility condition assessment and an educational suitability assessment. So a lot of surveys are done over a year or so, or however long it takes to gather all the data. What is, the current condition of each of the facilities? And when all of that information is put together, the result is that we, as a district, probably need around $5 billion to do all this work. But we're going to prioritize which campuses need the most urgent work. And then they go through a process with other consultants to determine what amount can we reasonably ask our citizens to pass. And so for us, that results in we have a lot of elementary schools that need to be, again, just completely torn down. Maybe in some cases, it might be the survey results of the facility condition assessment that, no matter how much you try to maintain or do deficiency upgrades, it's just not where it needs to be. You need a brand new facility. Sometimes it's educational suitability assessment. Maybe that facility still has, 10 to 15 more years for the most part, but the way that it was designed 50 years ago is not suitable for students and staff today. It doesn't follow the educational specifications and the size of classrooms, for example, or the size of a kitchen. So that educational suitability assessment grade combined with the facility condition assessment equals this school needs to be prioritized and essentially demolished and rebuilt. And in lesser cases, more so in the 2017 bond, there was, a greenfield site. The district purchased, new property, and they needed an additional school. If you've been to Austin, it's I think well known, but it's not a super large city. So being a district for the city, you're kind of landlocked, right? Like the district is only within certain boundary. So it's not too much of maybe like a newer outside town or city where they're buying more property to build more schools. In this case, they have to be creative with the property that they own. And I need to double check this stat, but they're either the largest or second largest owner of real estate within the city of Austin, the Austin Independent School District. So they're not necessarily looking to sell property to get funds to, improve their schools. They want to retain their property and ask voters for bond funds to help improve the schools.
I think it's pretty well known too. Like, isn't Austin's population just exploding too? Like, a lot of people are moving to Austin. So if you guys are dealing with properties, real estate that's 50 years old, you got a problem. And then compound that with the fact that there's got to be a massive time crunch for you guys to get this stuff done and open up these schools so that you can support this population growth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this timeline that our client has decided on for both bonds it's been a very ambitious timeline. So for 2017, the timeline was about 5 years to do the $1 billion or a little over $1 billion. And it was so successful that the thought was, well, let's ask for double the amount, but let's do that in the same amount of time. So This 2022 bond is within 5 to 6 years.
The other thing that feels ambitious about that is the taxing of the Austin market from other construction activity, because the Austin market has a lot going on. How is it trying to find specialty contractors to do the work, and how taxed is the system there?
That's a very good question. It's definitely a challenge that we've been working through in the last bond and still today. Examples from the last bond, that's during the time that the Gigafactory was being built just outside of Austin or within Austin near the airport. And there would be meetings, OACs, where, you're asking your contractor for an update. And they were being transparent. Their answer was, hey, Tesla has just, we can't compete with the dollars that Tesla's giving our subs. And so the subcontractors are prioritizing that work. So for a while there, it was pretty challenging with especially electrical and mechanical subcontractors working through resources. And that's just the Gigafactory. There's also Samsung being built just north of Austin. There's also all the work downtown, all of that development, and just in terms of growth, like you mentioned, the city's growing a lot, so there's a lot of construction going on to support that growth, and then add on the Gigafactory and the Samsung plant.
Did you have to figure out incentives for your subs to move them from something like that, like a large Tesla manufacturing facility, which is insane? Have you flown over it?
I have not. No.
I've flown over it, and Bianca, I know you've done it too. Oh my gosh, that is insanity. Anyway, did you guys provide any incentives to your subs to try to attract them to your projects over going over there and helping Tesla out?
Well, Austin ISD is a public entity, and incentives, what we have the bond dollars and which is taxpayers' dollars. Incentives don't operate the same way in the public realm as private, unfortunately.
Okay.
So really what carried us beyond incentives was, relationships. And I think the fact that, a Gigafactory and the Samsung plant, those are temporary and they're fast. So local subs, local contractors, I imagine they know that, Austin ISD is here indefinitely, right? So they want to maintain relationships with clients that are here and that are going to stay here after Tesla's done building, after Samsung's done building. So it's really relationship and trust based. What I've also noticed that was really neat is that, we're building for our community. So the children and the, partners, wives, families of these subcontractors and general contractors, they're either students at our schools or staff. They're the teachers or the principals or, anyone working in one of these facilities. So I think a lot of our success was based on that, just knowing that, yes, there's money out there, but they're still going to do their best to build for their own community. So they're going to try their best to prioritize that.
So it's interesting, the dates on this. The bid program starts in 2017, at least bond program 1, 2017. We had a mild hiccup around 2020. And you're still saying like that there was brave success in an ambitious schedule. So, what was it like navigating that right in the middle of this process?
Yeah, we still talk about that a lot.
It's PTSD moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first few, 2 to 3, definitely 2 schools in the 2017 bond, which, side note, the 2017 bond, I mentioned, was the largest they had ever passed. They also were ambitious in not only the timeline, but what they were doing, what they wanted to try. They had just passed their updated educational specifications. It's a document required by the Texas Education Agency for all public districts to have. It's your script. It tells you what every school needs. And so AISD's updated educational specification was a new approach for them. They wanted to build modernized facilities. These facilities in their vision, they looked nothing like what the 50-year-old schools look like, what even a lot of maybe even neighboring cities schools look like. They were looking nationally for their vision on what a modernized school meant to our district here. So it was that plus they wanted to try with that ambitious schedule, they wanted to try delivery methods that they weren't using as frequently, like construction manager at risk. They had done it maybe a handful of times before. Now they wanted all of their modernized projects to be either construction manager at risk or design build. And they had never done a design build contract for their schools before. So going back to your question, what did 2020 look like on top of trying a lot of new things with a lot of money in a short amount of time? So bond passed in November of 2017. Design started early 2018. And construction for the first couple of schools that were design build elementary schools started at the end of 2018 by the fall, like November, December. And for example, one of the elementary schools, T.A. Brown, around 75,000 gross square foot facility was built within 12 months. And that was at the tail end of 2019. We're rushing around the season of, heading into substantial completion. It was a tremendous amount of work, a lot of partnership, not only with subs and general contractors, but with the city of Austin. The permitting process here is a whole nother conversation, but we had a lot of great partnership with the city. And we opened the school. We celebrate on January 8th with this great grand opening ceremony. The students are in their new facility. And we're in the middle of the school year opening this new large school. And they used their school for 3 months, right? Yeah. And then COVID comes and all the schools were closed.
Glad we rushed.
Yeah.
Dang it, we could have lollygagged a lot more on this.
You say that, everything else shut down too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So about 2 months, 2 to 3 months,
Wow.
and they were all closed. So then we began navigating what does construction look like during COVID, and here in Texas and in Austin. I'm going back into that moment. I remember there were essential work could keep going, but if it was non-essential construction, you had to stop construction. So Austin ISD was in the category of essential, and there was a time where you needed to have a letter to drive to your job site to show that you're going to your work that was essential. We were navigating, policies, contractual language that, just wasn't typically used. And then a year later, was it Erie? We call it Snowvid.
Snowvid.
But when the grid
Oh yes.
when the grid collapsed
Yeah.
in Texas from the snow, that was then a year later yet another adventure for those projects.
So eloquently put. Big pain in the butt is what it sounded like. Yeah. A lot to navigate. And I mean, that's all the more respect to pay to the fact that you guys have been able to manage and navigate. This hasn't been just an easy road. This has had some bumps in it for sure. And they doubled down. That's insane to me. Like you break a record with $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, let's go big or go home.
$2 billion.
Yeah, how much more? I don't know. Let's call it 2. No, that's not enough. 2.4. Let's go. So, and then they pass it. So how far into that program are you now?
We are I wish I could show you our S-curve. We've been looking at it a lot lately. We're not quite halfway yet. We are almost up at the peak. The peak being almost all projects active, whether they're in construction or design, and projects about to start opening. So this spring, to prepare for August, our team will have four projects opening, and then another set of projects starting design this spring, and then a ton of other projects in construction.
So what's your bourbon supply like in Austin, Texas? Just kidding. Not really.
It's a lot of great. Austin's fun.
Yeah. I'll let you enter with your serious question here.
Yeah, I've got an actual question. When it comes to the overwhelm that has to just move right alongside this massive work, we're a little more down on the subcontractor, specialty contractor. And so we like to Monday morning quarterback. We sit on the other end of construction, and then we lament how bad design documents are. Why are we rushing into things? Like very seldom do we have that other side shedding light on why decisions are made. And so maybe can you defend the ownership side of things, like why we do early releases? Why do we get pushed into these corners? Like what kind of things are you guys up against that you feel like you're trying to work through issues to keep things moving all of the time?
So I think a quick answer would be escalation and maintenance. So the longer we wait to build the new facility, the more funds are going into that facility to maintain the old facility. The more costs go into energy. So a lot of the new facilities that we're building, it's actually a standard that they all be at least LEED Silver or AEGB, Austin Energy Green Building 3-star or more. And they are just really efficient. And the second cost to the district, aside from staff, is maintenance and energy. So the longer you wait, again, to build the new facilities, I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example of just, things that could go wrong in an old school. I'm sure y'all could imagine them as well. But the other thing is escalation, right? We've seen this market over the last few years. You can't really project these days with everything going on that's been going on since about around 2017 or just before 2020, especially with 2020. And since then, we do our best to predict what the market might look like in 6 months and a year. But you really can't. So the longer you wait, the more money you're going to spend. Or for the district, that means, they already have the set bond amount that they ask the citizens for. There's no more money beyond that. So if escalation takes over, then they could find themselves in a situation having to choose which schools or what scope they can't move forward with. And that's a direct impact to students and staff.
Yeah, I was going to say the inflation that followed COVID and Snowvid and everything else that you dealt with. And now you've got a set bond program. We're not spending more than this. I mean, like you're voted and locked in, and this is what's happening. And I would imagine that the amount of work that was in view when that original bond program was passed, and then the process of reckoning with, say 8-9 months of design, say 6 months of design, and knowing what was happening to the prices when things were really kicking. I mean, people weren't holding numbers hardly overnight. I mean, like 15 days on a bid, this might have to go up. So hard to project over 6 months what you're going to lose in scope just to make the project go.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The pricing aspect of this is something I feel like at the sub level is not something that I fully understood until we started talking to more people like you, right? And so it's very easy to sit at a subcontractor level or a sub of a sub if you're looking at detailing and cast stones, be like, oh, why don't we just move? Or why can't the drawings be better? But these are one of those things that are just, they're eye openers. And that's why I love that question, is because it's an eye-opening experience to say, oh, well, yeah, on $2.4 billion, 1% is kind of a lot of money, just a bit. And, we've got to be able to watch it because, again, like there's no more money after this. No, in the words of your daughter, no more monies.
No more monies. That's right. It's a classic quote.
Classic Katie quote.
Yeah. Well, 1%, goodness. What kind of inflation were we dealing with? Like 11 or something?
Right. Right.
Our annual inflation rate was insane. So
yeah,
that's another tough one. You help your owner decide on project delivery, right? I think we talked about that a little bit at the roadshow. Can we get into that a little bit? I mean, like the CM at risk, design build, what kind of things are you looking at to determine what you're going to do there?
Yeah. So when we are hired, we have, just very vague information. We know the bond amount that passed. We know how many schools were committed within those bond funds and the scope generally at a high level. And we know the duration that our client has committed to citizens, that they're going to open everything within this amount of time. So what we look at when we have those conversations with our client is really a mix of all of those things. If there's something that they need to deliver as quickly as possible, that is one tear down rebuild at a time. Let's say it's a full modernization. And a full modernization can look different as well. It could look like the site is too small. So now we have to help our client find a temporary offsite facility, have conversations with students and staff and communities and other communities that the offsite location is going to impact, so that we can start building on the site, tear the school down first, and then build it. Sometimes the site is large enough where you can have the students and staff remain in the existing building, have your limits of construction adjacent, build the new school, they move over, you tear that one down, and then you build the rest of the school, like the parking lots and other site-related items. Now, looking at which delivery method, you look at the level of complexity, the time, the money, and the level of risk. For us, design build, I wish we could do more of it. And I do appreciate that our client, in the last one, they came to us and they said, we want to try this. And it worked out really well. It worked out especially for the schools in the forefront of the bond. And our client mirrored that this time. They said, we want to do the same thing. We want to start with the first 4 set of elementary schools as design build. I think the benefits for that are that, that team, when you have CM at risk and AE, that model, it's still a fast track delivery method, but you're still dealing with 2 different contracts, 2 different entities. And the client and us, owners rep, whoever's involved in deciding who will be the AE and who will be the GC, we're deciding. It's not up to them. It's an arranged marriage, I guess, if we were to use that analogy. Whereas with design build, they are responding to the request for qualifications, the RFQ, the solicitation. They've already put their partnership together. So when they're coming in and submitting their proposal, or they're in for the interview, that is definitely something that we are looking at and grading on. What is their relationship like? If I haven't said it already, that is the key to, managing all of this work as quickly as we are. Relationships. A successful team that has a lot of trust, that can depend on one another, will take a project exactly where it needs to go, where everyone involved has the project as the main, like, that's their priority, the project, not themselves. That's where success is guaranteed, essentially. So with design build, that's one of the things that I really appreciate about design build is it's an opportunity for the two main firms, your two critical partners, the architect and the general contractor, to choose one another before they present themselves to the client. So you already have a leg up in the formula for success.
Pushback on the design build. A lot of times you would hear, maybe that's gonna gut your building. Like that's gonna take some of the creativity or the look, or like you're gonna get this real pragmatic, just for function type of general contractor look at it, and you're gonna lose something there. That or maybe the contractor's got a little bit too much of an iron fist over the money or what have you. The relationships seem to win the day there, though. Is that your take on it?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I've noticed. Contractually, I mean, you can look at it a lot of different ways. I think another way to put it is, as an owner or as an owner's rep, you have one less contract to quote unquote deal with, right? You have the main agreement, and whatever direction you're giving, just like similar to you're talking to your GC who has their subcontractors and they're responsible for getting that work done. Well, now you're talking to the GC who has the architect under them. So your expectation and your conversation is, a bit more efficient. You're talking to them at once or just the GC. A lot of times, from what I see, it's both of them. The relationship is really great. So you're addressing both of them at once instead of, when you get to those kind of contentious situations or challenges, you lose time having to talk to your architect, get their perspective, go talk to your contractor, get their perspective. You're talking to both of them because they committed to doing this together within one contract. Now, on your note of what does the design look like, or maybe it's less creative, I'd say we don't necessarily call it progressive design build, but from what my understanding of progressive design build, I believe that our clients' design build contracts are more in the realm of progressive design build. There's a lot of engagement on our client side and the community, a lot of community engagement throughout the design and pre-construction phase. So while everyone, no matter what contract type, is following the educational specification and ensuring, contractually they are obligated to make sure that if they're designing and building a small elementary school, it has X number of studios, X number of size, X number of support spaces. All of these schools look so different. They're so cool. They're so beautiful. Not one, I cannot say like that one looks like the other. The only time I hear maybe my colleagues or our client, make comments on that one looks like another, it's really on when it comes to finishes. You can kind of see, if one architect designed one school and then another, you can see that come out. You can see, oh, that looks like this architect's design, but only in again, like the finishes and kind of the fluffier stuff. It's not really, you're never walking into a building and feeling like that's like the other elementary school down the road. That community engagement, I think, is a huge component of it. Our client really expects everyone to work with what's referred to as the campus architectural team, the CAT. We call them the CATs. And all their feedback, they're there throughout the entire process. And our goal is really to ensure that the end result, the facility, is designed and built for that community. So you could walk into one facility, follows the ed spec just like all the others, but one facility in certain area kind of just east of downtown Austin has incredible murals of their Mexican American heritage and culture. You won't find that in the other buildings. And where they place their murals, it's within an atrium. An atrium is not an ed spec or project development manual requirement. Not every school needs that, but that was important to that community to have a very specific space for the mural with natural light to highlight it. And in another school, outdoor learning is part of the ed spec and the PDM, but maybe to that community, they were adamant about, what does outdoor learning mean to them? So their art studio maybe is, they definitely want it on the first floor, and they want like a garage door so that they can have it open up and be an art class and be basically outside at the same time.
What sorts of building techniques did you guys implement in this? Did you guys explore any prefab or anything neat like that in these buildings? Because, I mean, you're talking about like, we got to get this done quick. We got to think pretty hard about maybe there's some ways that we can expedite our delivery here. Was there anything like that stands out?
Yeah, it's been explored. I do, if I remember correctly, any time we have explored that, like tilt walls, for example, we don't quite have the space to implement something like that. In terms of prefab, I do know that we tried at one of the schools having a prefab space for a lot of the mechanical equipment. We were trying to save cost and time by having it outside of the building. So you're saving square footage within the building for your mechanical rooms and whatnot. Maybe you're spending more on piping. But what's cool about the magnitude or the volume of the work and the quantity of schools that we're doing is that it's a constant, like, lessons learned. We're constantly, even our client, and they take full advantage of this. They gather, what we're able to provide from our designers and contractors in terms of an assessment. Maybe we want to study a prefab situation, and maybe in one instance, it might cost a little more, but it's going to save time. And our client makes that decision because time is more critical than the cost that we're seeing, the delta. So they try it, but then, at the end result, we go back and look at, did it save as much time as we thought? Did it cost as much as we thought? And maybe the results aren't what we thought. So next time that's brought up, they already know we went through that. We're not going to do that again. But I do really appreciate that about our client. They always want to investigate and explore with us. And there's a lot of trust that they have in that we're going to get all of the information and we're all, as partners, owners rep, contractor, architect, subcontractors, we're all going to do our due diligence and provide enough information for our client to make that decision. And then we try to do our best again to collect the data and the results and determine if we want to try that again.
Let's talk about data collection, because that's an area that I can nerd out on just a little bit. So when you're talking about data collection, how are you guys going about that? Like, is there anything unique to your approach to how you guys are collecting all of this for all these different builds?
Well, maybe from the outside perspective, because I get I get a lot of great feedback. I think it looks like, wow, your team has so much data. How did they get all of that information? And our team creates dashboards and tools and reports. But what does it look like on the inside building it all? It is a lot of Excel. We try our best, and I think we have been successful in some areas. Like in this bond, a big lesson learned from the last bond was the PMIS, the Project Information System, it didn't work out as expected, but we knew we wanted to try again. So we went with another company this time. And when I say we, I'm talking about our team with our client. And so we helped implement a different system that the hope was that we'd be able to put the data in and it spit the data out a lot cleaner and more efficiently than last time. And it is doing that. It is. The vision has come to life for the most part, but even with all the technology and the tools and the people, we're still using a lot of Excel. You can't get away from it. Excel is just awesome. I mean, there are components of like, we use, Power BI, the PMIS, a lot of Bluebeam. Sometimes you have so many different tools or platforms that, can definitely do what you're looking for in one area, but it might not connect with the other platform that specializes in another area. So then ultimately, you need to build something that connects all of that data. So for us, for our team, what that looks like is, I think our structure is a little different than maybe a standard program management team. I think for a lot of large programs, the client sometimes chooses like certain personnel that they want to hire from a firm like ours. Like, for example, we just need a construction inspector, a project manager, and a controls person times 2. And they're going to live with our staff, and our staff's going to do other things, and they're one team. Whereas our client, again, that trust is there from the last program when we were all trying to figure it out together. And this program, they were pretty much like, yeah, what do you all need? What would y'all like to do? And it's just a really great relationship. So what we responded with this time is from our lessons learned in the last bond. We said, we have the luxury of, being able to build our team, and our team is completely responsible for those projects that we're assigned to. And we report back to the owner, and we reel them in, we give them a heads up when we need direction from them. Other than that, we're just like really operating in our own, living in a space that they provide for us, which we can talk about later if you'd like. I have a interesting note on that space. But so 30 plus of us working together. Of that 30 plus, 10 to 12, so almost half, definitely a third of those folks are purely the controls team. So talk about data. That is how I believe we're successful in being able to maintain and truly learn from the data. We have a dedicated controls manager, dedicated quality manager, dedicated schedule manager, documents manager, budget manager, FF&E, fixtures, furniture, and equipment manager, and then a whole support team of control specialists that support those managers in their niche. And those folks are like full-time. Like you're going to talk to your schedule manager about, she sees all of the P6 files that come in from all the GCs. She looks at the program schedule, and that person is dedicated to that realm. So they're responsible for that process, for all the data. And they take like ownership and pride of their realm. So you can really trust the data. versus, and if you have the luxury of having a controls team that's even more than 3 people, let's say it's 3 people, I mean, one person is going to be doing more than just schedule, more than just, maybe they're doing schedule and documents. And so they're always balancing between getting that data and, making sure everything's great.
No. Sit down.
Sounds like a small business to me.
Yeah. All right. So, all right. On this subject of data, all right, you talked about a lot of different ways. I think you guys are managing it great. And based off of the presentation that you guys gave that we got to watch and we kind of got to talk about, I think the approach is awesome. But in the realms of we are always trying to improve the industry and make it better, right? If you could change one thing or like wave the magic wand and say, man, I wish that we could fix this about how we are able to collect data or how we're able to read it or unify it, however, in the data realm, is there something that you're like, I wish this could get better. I wish this could change and we could fix it.
I think there's 2 areas that I wish could change with a magic wand. One is the simple, there's so many great companies that design and create all these wonderful platforms that are magic in their own.
Mm-hmm.
If I had a magic wand, I'd want all of that magic to be, consolidated and talk to each other. Yeah, that'd be a simple one. And similarly, within our client side, this bond technically is managed by the construction management department of the entity of Austin ISD. Mm-hmm. Austin ISD is an entity of its own. It's a business that's one department. They have, I forget at this point, but 15,000 or more employees, 50,000 plus students, over 130 facilities. So they have, operations, finance, and all of the departments in a typical business, procurement, etc., and then construction management department. So sometimes when we're trying to collect data on bond stuff, it's not so black and white and clearly divided. Sometimes internally, we need the data from the bond work to jive with the rest of the entity. And that's where we hit some of our challenging roadblocks, is within the organization itself that we can't really do much about because our focus is and our reporting structure is to construction management department. So we could, if the magic wand, said, hey, I'm going to consolidate all of those really magical construction related platforms for you to just go to one place, that still wouldn't answer the connection between construction management department and the larger entity. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense. And that's the thing that I keep seeing a lot of is like, there's so many ways to answer the technological challenges out there. And there's so many solutions and it's great, but also it comes with its own growing pains because we're trying to find what works, what doesn't. And so it's kind of an interesting age that we're in with construction tech specifically, because it's like, we're all trying to figure this out. That's the reason I asked the question. Is I just kind of wanted to hear from you. It's similar to the way I'm thinking right now. So I'm glad I'm happy to hear you say that.
Can I talk again?
Yes,
Thank
you,
you, Tyler.
again.
You put your finger right on an industry pain point that goes up and down the food chain, because you just said, I just wish that, I want a tool. I want to consolidate tools in a way that, I don't have all of these disparate parts that almost do everything that I need, but don't quite do everything I need. And I'm trying to unify a team of people to utilize all of these disparate parts in a cohesive way so that I could extract data from it and so that I could make informed decisions and so that I could push the reporting up the chain and I can, hold people accountable down. And then the next part of that I love, that I think everybody's like saying the same thing. Remember we talked about everybody wants to be in front of the owner. Everybody's like, if I could just get to that next tier, I could tell them my little, my part and just say, if you do it this way, it goes so much better. There's always a firewall up the chain somewhere where you just can't quite get to that level where you're just like, man, if I could just swing this door open and chain of command didn't exist and I could just speak directly to this person.
It's Hamilton.
I'd get
Hamilton.
what I need.
You want to be in the room where it happens. Great musical. Anyway.
It's a great musical.
It's a fantastic musical.
But I mean, I feel that way when it comes to maybe getting to a contractor or getting to a design team. I don't have access to them many times because chain of command. Like I can't get to that room. So it's very interesting to hear the owner end of that say the same thing. Like it's happening to everyone. Everyone has that.
Even the client themselves. Yep. Within their own organization. Yeah.
When you scale it up to something this size too, oh my gosh, like there's got to be so much pressure on the decision of like how you guys manage the whole process and like all the little nuance that goes into it. And you think down to like subcontractors and GCs, all these people, they have their own way of managing projects and their own systems and processes, and it may not really fit really well with yours. And this is such a complex problem. I think it's interesting that, and there's a lot of harping right now saying like, oh, we're going to solve all the industry problems with this one tool. And I'm like, guys, from hearing a lot of people talk, holy cow, this industry is so dynamic. There's so many things that happen that like, I've been in it for well over a decade now. I'm learning crap every single day. Like, and I will until the day that I die. Because there's always something changing. There's always different people at the helm of the ship, driving the change. There's always new programs, new software, whatever. And I don't know. It's a fun time to be in construction. I'm just saying that. It's fun because we're figuring a lot of crap out. Kind of, sort of, in a way. Stumbling our way forward.
You know what today is for me?
What?
This is January 2nd.
Yes. As it is for me.
Yeah.
And for Bianca. Congratulations.
For me, this is the 20-year anniversary of me starting with ABSI.
Oh, crap.
I've officially been at it for 20 years.
It is, isn't it?
Yes. So,
congratulations.
And in 20 years, thank you. In 20 years.
I'm not saying congrats.
I'm saying this same thing of it has been quite a time to be in construction.
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch the change. Yep. And it's frustrating to watch how long it's taking. Because I feel like, oh man, we can do so much quicker. But the complexity of the problem.
Yeah.
And all the different parts. When you think about, we'll call it an even $3 billion. And 42 projects, 42 total projects in this program? Ish? Did I do that math right?
No.
Over the two bond programs, you had 24 and 16.
Mm-hmm.
That worked? 24 and 18? 24 and 18. I think that's where I came up with it.
I think almost 45.
45? Yeah. Okay.
All right, you guys are just speaking numbers now. I have no idea.
We're doing the math, man. All right.
Is this number of projects or money?
Projects.
Okay, got it.
The $3 billion, that was the money.
Old Tyler needed a minute. All right. Okay.
Think of how much construction that represents.
Yeah.
Like how much variable, how many different things you have to worry about. Anything from, civil concerns on land and whether I can allow that to drain out of this parking lot into that spot, all the way down to how does a student feel when they sit in that cubby and read in that corner? And and what do the citizens of the area feel like when this building is put on that piece of property?
Yeah.
And now, how am I going to manage all those people? Because they all have opinions and I have to hear them.
Oh, and there's a
because this
mega
is
project down. There's a mega project down. There are actually a couple of them.
That's, you got to love, I say you got to love, you got to respect the complexity of the problem that we're trying to solve at large as a construction world. You know, I mean, it's just not, we say construction. I'm in construction. How many different ways could you be in construction? It's a lot. Yeah.
So many.
Well, well, the way we get better is Bianca doing what you're doing today and sharing with the class what you've learned and what you're out there doing. I love it. I applaud you. That's a really cool thing that you're working on.
Thank you.
I want to ask you our megaphone question, though. All right. Okay. So this one's going to be a little bit more, feely, I'll say.
We've already given out a magic wand. So now you're giving
all right,
out
I'm getting out a megaphone, a magic wand. This is just like, I feel like Oprah today. Not get in the car, though. Sorry. If we were to give you a megaphone and around 60 seconds to say something to the construction industry, this is like shouting it from the rooftops. You wish you could just tell this to everybody in the industry and they could just understand this one thing. What would you want to say? What would you want to leave to the industry?
I'd want to start by saying that what we are doing is huge. We are directly impacting lives. We're the built environment. I appreciate everyone's passion for what we do. And just like you mentioned, from the challenge of where's the water going on a site, sheet flow and civil, and how does a student feel in their chair? Multiply that question in a million different ways. I've been in love with this industry since I, was drawn to it to study it, because I truly do believe that we are impacting lives in our community and in the world. What I'd like to say to folks in our industry is the key to it can be overwhelming. It's inevitable. We talked about so many challenges that pop up that you can't foresee. At the end of the day, what's behind everything that we're doing, what's behind the built environment is the people. It's all of us doing whatever we're focusing on. Y'all mentioned, I think it's awesome that y'all hear about all the different ways that people are in the construction industry. It's all people. At the end of the day, we wouldn't have this built environment without the people. So just remember that. And when times get tough, you can turn a conversation around. You can turn a project around with trust and collaboration and communication. The buzzwords we always hear at the beginning of a project before it starts, they're real. And I'd like people to remember that. And also that what we're doing, it really is an inspiration. And I get to see that firsthand when we build the schools or when we're walking to school and we have our vests and our hard hat on. The kids are just like, we made their day. They'll come up and hug us sometimes. And they're just, we're inspiring our future. We're building for our future. And when I say we, that's us. That's human beings. That's people. So let's just continue to trust each other and make the world a better place.
That's awesome. And Bianca, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing everything.
Thank you. Y'all are a lot of fun. Thank you so much.